Hello, and welcome everybody to the Autism 360 podcast, the Autism 360 Method, a weekly podcast where we talk about everything Autism 360. Each week, we'll be catching you up with what's going on in the program, chatting with team members, and talking all things mindset, as well as exploring relevant ideas that autism parents think about. I'm your host, Ella Bailey, Autism 360 veteran coach and explorer of all things parenting support. I come from a behavioral psychology background, and today I am lucky enough to be rejoined by the delightful Renae Tate, our mindset coach here on the program. Hello.
Hello, Ella. Hello, everyone who's listening. It's great to be here today, and we've got a great topic today.
We sure do. So welcome our lovely listeners. We want to extend a special welcome to our program members who are listening today. Hello, thank you for joining us. And this podcast exists for you. It exists for our community, and we would love to hear from you. So please, drop a line, reach out at hello@autism360.com. We would love to hear from you, and send in your parent questions for myself or some of my special guests to answer in upcoming podcasts. Before we get started, I would like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, on whose land I live and work, and from where this podcast is being broadcast today. And I would also like to mention that this podcast is not a substitute for medical advice. If you have concerns about yourself or about your child, please do contact a medical professional and get some expert advice. So Renae, hooray! Such a good topic today.
Yes, so today we're talking about motivation, and I think it's one that everyone can benefit from. It particularly, I find a lot of parents sometimes just get a little bit stuck in the weeds, and it's, it can be a bit of a slog sometimes and feel like, am I getting anywhere? Where are we going? And so I think it's really important to look at how today we're going to look at some tips on how you can stay motivated and keep working towards your goals. So I think sometimes I do notice, Ella, I'm not sure about you, but a lot of the time I find that parents are focused on all the things they're worried about, and they're really projecting all that fear and anxiety into the future, worried about, what's going to happen for my child. And they sort of head in this direction that's all can be a little bit negative, a bit doom and gloom. And it's no wonder that they're not feeling motivated, because it's certainly not going to motivate you to want to be doing more if that's where your mindset is at. So what I would suggest around that, if you are struggling and wanting to feel more motivated, is first of all, take a bit of a step back and look at, first of all, the bigger picture again. Okay, if you're feeling a bit like I'm stuck in, will my child ever get their toileting, or if we're ever going to get past this stage, I just want you to take a bit of a step back and then look at the vision that you want for your family. First of all, longer term, that direction that you do want to head into. So where do you want your family to be 10 years from now? 5 years from now, 12 months from now, okay? And start just looking at that. Where is it that we're actually wanting to head, rather than heading in that direction of what we're worried, and, what we focus on grows. So if we're always looking in that other direction, that's where we're going to head. So really important to get that vision for the future. And then from there, break it down into some smaller goals that you can achieve. So I often say to the parents on the program, if they're on for 3 months or, that period of time, what is some goals that you would like to achieve during that time? Maybe it's about being calmer, maybe it's being happier, whatever it is for them. But if we break that down, that vision down, we chunk it down a bit to some goals that they can really start to work towards. And from that, I would then say break it down into some weekly tasks so that it's actually quite achievable. It's quite actionable, that you go, okay, well, what do I need to do towards that? And that really helps you stay on track. I mean, we can't hit a target that we can't see. So how are we going to be motivated if we don't even have something that we're excited about or we're really wanting to achieve? So I think if you're feeling a little bit like you're lacking motivation, perhaps it's like time to set some goals for yourself and really start to work towards those smaller goals, towards a longer term vision. And of course, important to celebrate your wins along the way. I think that's a big thing, is also acknowledging yourself for how far you've come, what you are achieving, big things and little things. And, you know, I think sometimes we don't do that enough because we're always focused on maybe what's missing, what's lacking, what our child's not doing. So rather than looking at that all the time, looking at, well, what have we achieved, and ticking those things off, because success breeds success. So it's like the more that you can acknowledge yourself for what you are achieving, the more you're going to want to do more of that. Yeah. So I think that's, you know, a really, if you haven't got clear about it, it's midway through the year, good time to just go, okay, you know, what do I want to achieve for the future, but particularly those shorter term goals. And that 1% increase, you know, sometimes it's like, we need to just keep that consistency, because by the end of the year, those little increases, those little wins, you'll be amazed at how far you come and look back and go, wow, you know, look at what we have achieved. I think having that clear direction is really, really important. What do you think, Ella?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been listening to, well, I try to listen to all the time to the voices of different carer groups of autistic kids. You know, I try to listen to parents of young kids, parents of teenagers, parents of 30-year-olds, you know, really, you know, non-speaking verbal kids. And I listened to this fantastic Facebook Live the other day from an account called Finding Cooper's Voice. And she's always really honest about her experience of raising her autistic son, Cooper, who is non-speaking, level 3, and has, you know, significant challenges, significant disabilities. And she talks about realizing that there is this really tricky stage of autism parenting that's sort of, you know, 4 to 8, where you're really in the weeds. You really start to notice that your kiddo is not keeping up with their peers. It's when they either get to school or don't. It's when they are, you know, lots of kids are doing their other first things and your child may not be, or whatever. But she gave this really interesting perspective, which I think bears so well on motivation, which is that it isn't forever. There's a season, and the season that you're in is just that. It's a season. And the fact that your child is going to be completely different in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, is something that you can hold on to. You know, even a child with the most significant impairments is going to make beautiful, cool, groundbreaking improvements in their own way. So I think all parents should go check out that account, Finding Cooper's Voice, and have a listen to her perspective on how you can maintain motivation and find joy in your own journey, kind of thing, your own autism parenting journey. What sorts of challenges do you find pose the biggest threat to parents' motivations when you're chatting with them on the program, Renae?
Well, look, I think sometimes it's they're exhausted a lot of the time, and their cup's running a bit empty. And I always say we can't pour from an empty cup. So I think having those times to refuel yourself is really important. And for parents to think it's okay for me to do things that fill me up again. It's like going and recharging your battery. Because if you are not doing those things, you get to that point where you become a little bit demotivated, maybe a little bit frustrated, a bit resentful, and then you're not being your best as a parent, which does not make you feel good. So I think that's probably one of the biggest one, is make sure you're doing some things to fill your cup up. Then you've got more to keep giving. You're able to handle things much better as well. I think sometimes also just getting started is important. And I listened to this really good TED talk, and I have to remember the gentleman's name, but basically what he was saying, and he has ADHD. He's very successful in business and his life, and he talked about all the things he's achieved. But he went from being a student that really struggled when he was younger to being on the dean's list, getting honours. He really changed his whole life, and he did this with a really clever strategy. He broke things down into 5-minute chunks and said, can I do that for 5 minutes? And from that, he was able to get started, because I think that's a lot of the problem. Sometimes it's just getting started. And I see sometimes parents have houses that are a bit cluttered, or they're like, this is what we're living in, that clutters them up in their mind as well, and then they feel overwhelmed. So I've just been saying to parents, can you get started for 5 minutes? And they go, yeah, I can do that. And what you'll find is once you get started, the chances are you'll want to continue, because it's like anything, whether it's studying, or whether it's starting something with your work, whether it's, can I go for a walk? Rather than looking at, I've got to find an hour, I don't have that time. Can you go for 5 minutes? And once you get started, you'll be amazed at how you will just naturally want to keep going. So I think that's another good strategy that I think everyone can benefit from, is just 5 minutes. And that start, and it is those small incremental increases that where we start to get that consistency, and then we start to see results, and then it motivates us more to want to do more, because we're seeing, oh, okay, I'm getting on top of that momentum creates momentum. So I think that those are some good tips for parents to be able to action straight away. Yeah, fill your cup up. Do something for yourself, really important, whatever that is. Even if it's, I'm just going to meditate in bed for 5 minutes a night. That's just a nice thing for you that you can do regardless of what's happening with your family. Maybe you feel like you don't have time, but also, looking at those things, but also breaking things down into really bite-sized chunks that you can implement. And that's not, everyone can do that. I've had so many parents go, yeah, I could do that. I can cook dinner for 5 minutes. I can sit down with my child for 5 minutes. Sometimes that can be hard to just be present and get into their world, because it's like, oh, I don't have time. But you know what? I can do that for 5 minutes. So I think that's a really good starting place.
That's how I got myself to start cleaning the bathroom when it needs to be cleaned. It was, can I clean this whole bathroom? I would, rather eat a fork. But can I do 5 minutes of dusting? Yes, I can, kind of thing. And then before you know it, the bathroom's clean, right? Like,
yeah.
It's an awesome tactic to at least like get yourself over that initial hurdle, and then that behavioral momentum, behavioral inertia kind of carries you once you're already in the flow, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And I think celebrating those wins along the way as well, and maybe just take a moment sometimes to stop and reflect on how far you've come. What have you achieved so far? What has your child achieved? And when you start to look back and go, wow, we are actually doing a lot more than what I realized, and changing your mindset from what's missing to what we are achieving, that's really going to inspire you to want to keep going and doing more. So it's a good opportunity to sit back. I did it for myself the other day. I was getting frustrated, and I thought, you know what, let's look at what I've achieved in the last 5 years. And it was amazing. The more that we start to look at that, the more we really start to notice more and more things. And it really gives you that really good boost. So I think that's a really important one for parents. Give yourself a big pat on the back. Acknowledge yourself for what you are doing. Criticism doesn't help. If you're beating yourself up, it's just going to really weigh you down. So just really acknowledge yourself for what you're doing already. That will really encourage you and motivate you to want to keep going and doing more as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a question for us that pertains to this one. So this is from one of our lovely program parents, Rebecca from Blackwater. And she's just asking, I find myself feeling very demotivated after every assessment appointment where milestones are being missed. Any tips for managing motivation in the face of some discouraging results?
Yes, look, I think that's a common one, and sometimes it's hard when we're not seeing results to feel like, yeah, how do I keep going? How do I stay motivated? So I think just remember, sometimes we don't see the results straight away. It's a bit like if we go to the gym, we don't see results on day one. We may not see results on day two. We might not even see those results for a month, but they're going to happen just through that consistency. And so it is about just staying focused on your goals. I think that's where having those clear goals really helps you stay on track, because it's when we start losing track of those things, that's when we can get a bit lost and lose our way a bit. So I think stick to your goals, keep going, even though you're not seeing results straight away. Just keep focusing on that outcome of what you want to achieve. Yeah, and really just celebrate the small wins, even if you're not getting the actual results just yet. Celebrate the fact that, you know what, we're doing it. We're trying. My child's trying. I'm trying. We're doing the best we can, and just acknowledge yourself for that, because that's an achievement in itself. And I think that the more that we can be very kind and praising ourselves and being proud of those things, that it certainly helps keep going as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Rebecca, I would say, we spend a lot of time working out what motivates our children to push through things that are hard. We spend a lot of time working out, reinforcement schedules or reward charts, or, whatever it might be that's going to motivate them to, help them to learn new skills, to do things that are not in their wheelhouse and whatnot. And so I think we should take that enthusiasm and that persistence that we bring to try to motivate our child to try to motivate ourselves. Figure out what motivates you. If what actually motivates you is, specifically the feedback from those assessments, then really tailor what you're doing to figure that out. I think if figuring out what you actually need to feel fulfilled, and then figuring out a system to work towards those things is going to be super helpful. We're all motivated by different things. We all have different levels, to which we're willing to work for one thing or for the other. So take time to reflect on that and figure out, what really motivates me to push through this thing that is hard. And depending on what you come up with, be strategic about the way that you deploy that in your life. And I think it will make a difference. I'm a praise motivated person. I really love getting positive feedback from people, getting positive feedback from clients and that sort of thing. That I really thrive on that, but not everybody does. I have a lot of clients who find that really uncomfortable or awkward kind of thing. In fact, my sister just can't stand being praised. It's hilarious. And so, work on that. See what works for you. What do you think, Renae?
Oh, definitely. Some people are definitely a bit more carrot. Some people are a bit more stick. Maybe, yeah, absolutely. Look at those, break it down into smaller things, but absolutely. I think that's a great tip. And if you're a stick person, you're better with that. Oh, well, what will happen if I don't do this? Maybe look at, what is my why? What regrets will I have if I don't follow through on this, and make sure that those things are really clear, because that might drive you more to go, I don't want to have regrets. I don't want my child to miss out on this or that. And that may actually motivate you more. I think the other thing to look at is other things that maybe you didn't think you would overcome once upon a time that you have now, and you might take that for granted. Oh, well, now we can just do that. But once upon a time, that might have felt like a goal that you didn't know how you would achieve. You wondered if you'd ever get there. But I'm sure if you look back, you'll see those milestones along the way. So that might just give you that ability to go, wow, keep going, because it is worth it. And I always say to people, don't stop 3 feet from gold. Sometimes we are closer to achieving it than what we realize. So make sure you keep going. And if you do, I'm sure you'll get those results.
Yes, absolutely. Rebecca, please let us know if that's helpful. We would love to hear from you. And we're going to finish up today with some action points from our lovely Renae. Where do you think our parents should start with this week?
Well, I always say in any session with with our lovely parents or the group sessions is, what's the biggest thing that you're taking away from today, first of all, and what can you action from today? So make sure you put some of those things into action, even if it's just one or two things. That action is so important. Awareness is great, but without action and actually getting that happening, it really doesn't have the benefits. So just make a clear commitment to yourself that you're going to put these things into action today, and you will start to get that momentum, and you'll really start to get that success.
Yep, absolutely. And I think for those listeners who aren't on the program or who, are maybe umming and ahhing, I think something that really helps with motivation is how the program really lays out a clear path to success. I think it's a finite timeline, and every program is personalized by your allied health professional coach. And I think that it can really help with motivation to get that kind of boost in productivity, to be really held accountable, even for just a finite timeline, and to get a bit of a turbocharge to your progress. So please reach out, let us know if we can help you. Inquire about the program at hello@autism360.com. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you as always to the lovely Renae, our mindset guru.
Thank you everyone.
So we will join you again next week with another topic relevant to autism parenting. So thank you very much for being here with us today. And until then, think 360.